I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, September the 8th, brought to you in part by the International Brangus Breeders Association. This is Brangus country. If you'd like to find out more about the advantages of introducing Brangus influence into your herd, or maybe to look at a production sale that's going to be in your area, visit gobrangus.com. Feeling like fall, guys. And we've got a big front coming over. It's going to be hitting the middle part of the country early this week, and it's definitely going to feel like fall. I was looking at Denver's forecast there, and they were going to have middle 90-degree weather through the weekend, followed by low 40s for a high coming in early in the week. But I'm doing this report a little bit early because I am going to take the long holiday weekend off. Will not be going to Ruidoso Downs, and it's just ridiculous. Both your most popular quarter horse race and thoroughbred race are going to be run this weekend to no fans. Good job, governors. You guys really flexed your muscle on that. Be proud of yourself. I guess we should have called it a riot or something, then we could have done whatever we wanted. But hate to see that sport suffer because we can't open things up, you know, and those are outdoor events and people could spread out. It's just ridiculous that you can't enjoy the things that you like to do. But we are coming into the fall of the year. It's going to get busy. We're going to start getting calf runs. Every day that goes forward, your runs are going to be a larger percent calves than yearlings, and the only yearlings going to be moving is some yearlings that are going to be coming off of those foothills of the Rockies that they have later grazing out there, and some of those guys are probably scrambling to get those yearlings off of those elevations because they are getting snow in some of those higher elevations there. But very, very dry in many places, starting to get pretty darn dry in the Corn Belt. Come down the southern plains, getting very, very dry. Has been dry all summer long. Places in the southwest, down in Arizona, just horribly dry. But guys are trying to scratch in, dust in some wheat, and they need to be sowing their wheat this time of year around Labor Day there, and they would love to catch some moisture, but most of them are just going to go ahead and dust it in and hope for the moisture that comes with that cold front. But it's not going to be a very good start to your winter wheat grazing season. It doesn't look like, because guys are just really struggling to get that put in. But due to the early report that I'm having, I don't have the results of Torrington and Russell, Iowa yet, but I promise I'll give you those on our next visit. But we are getting started in here with a new week. You look at your futures market for last week, October live cattle. Monday was up $1.27, Tuesday up 17 cents, Wednesday off $1, Thursday down 55, Friday back up 52 cents, with your October live cattle futures ending the week at 104.45, down just 45 cents. That's not terrible. December ended the week at 108.47. There was actually more attention paid to your feeder cattle futures this week than live cattle futures, which is very unusual, because really feeder cattle futures are just kind of a derivative of your live cattle futures. But your September feeder cattle, Monday was up 27, Tuesday down 17, Wednesday down $1.42, Thursday down $1.10, and right in there, I tell you what, the middle of the week, the technical indicator guys were looking at their charts and seeing a classic Fibonacci retracement. That name is named after a mathematician from the 13th century, and I'm not going to go into what it means, but it is a significant indicator, and this time was that we had some bottom side support. So everybody, all your commodity brokers were talking about how, you know, then this thing is going to slingshot back up, and we don't want to be caught short and all this stuff, but we didn't really see that. end of the week on Friday, it was up a nickel on September. And it wasn't very impressive on your farther out months, maybe just a little bit more, but they're still kind of hoping, just technically, I mean nothing to do with any fundamentals, but just looking at the charts and studying the squiggly lines on there, a lot of people really encouraged that the market was going to jump back up. I don't know. It's hard to see that. You know, we see these reports, these cattle on feed reports and things. They act like there's a lot of cattle still left outside your feedlots. We're running out of yearlings, guys. There's still some of them yet to deliver, but we're running out of yearlings. We got a lot of fall-born calves to sell, but you know, are the cattle out there or not? We know that this calf crop that we're working into this fall is going to be significantly smaller than we've had for the last few years. And evidently the ones that we've just gotten through weren't as big either, because we had so much death loss and weight loss during the last couple of years that we didn't see indicated on our USDA inventory reports, which really would have been nice. But if we've got a lot smaller calf crop, which we know we got coming, we might want to start thinking about giving some support to these feeder cattle futures. And if you know, so many of the people that trade into feeder cattle futures are chart readers and they are technical, you know, chances are if they're all looking at it the same way and they're all wanting to get on for the ride back up, then we could see some support. But your September feeder cattle futures ended the week at 137.65, down $2.37. October ended the week at 138.50, down $1.67. Your fat cattle trade through Thursday of last week, and we didn't have a whole lot of trade on Friday, but through Thursday, your negotiated cash sales in your 5-area feeding region, 64,800 head, and everybody's wondering, are we going to be able to keep fat cattle over $1 this month? It does not appear that we're going to be able to do that. And when you cross those thresholds like that, I tell you what, sometimes it just seems like the bottom drops out. But people, it really hurts their psyche. You know, cattle feeders and guys like that, whenever they start selling cattle, you know, in double digits instead of triple. I mean, it's a pretty tough deal. But I tell you what, we're clinging. Your Southern Plains especially. We were a little bit encouraged early in the week because on Tuesday started selling cattle in the Southern Plains. The Texas guys didn't fool around. They started selling quite a few cattle at 104. So that 104 was actually a premium to what a lot of your Northern Plains cattle brought. And we're thinking, what in the heck's going on here? Because it hadn't just been a couple, 3 weeks ago, they were shipping cattle from southern Kansas up into Nebraska and Iowa to make kill up there. But man, that Southern Plains premium didn't last very long. 104 early in the week, and that's where a bulk of the cattle sold actually in the Southern Plains. Then it moved to 103 middle of the week, and finally 102. So that was very disappointing. But in your 5-area feeding region, your live steers and heifers ranged in price from 102 to 105. That was $1 to $2 lower. Your dress or weighted average on live steers ended up late Thursday, and it's not going to change a whole lot, guys, with a little bit dab of trade on Friday, but around 103.18. And that's pretty close to $2 lower on the weighted average. Your dressed steers and heifers ranged in price only from 162 to 164. Pretty tight range there. That was $3 to $5 lower. But your weighted average on dressed steers around 163.11 through Thursday's sales, and that was about $2.50 lower. So it wasn't as severe as we thought maybe on our dress prices, but live pretty darn tough there. But let's look at some sales we had on Friday. Confirmed Iowa, about 800 head, at 102.5, which sucks, to 104. Had some 162 dress. Nebraska really didn't have any trade on Friday. Kansas, about 600 head at 102, which was $2 lower than they sold earlier in the week, and $3 lower than last week. Texas, 1,300 head on Friday at 102. Box beef cutout values have started their seasonal drop off, and these weighted average prices that I'm going to give you for all of last week's trade are actually higher than what Friday's quotes were because the market continued to go lower. But your weighted average on last week's trade, all of last week's trade on choice cuts, ended up at 227.39. That was down $2.52 from the weighted average from the previous week. But on Friday afternoon, your choice cuts were just under 226 there. But selects, your weighted average for last week, 213.14, off just 21 cents. But your Friday quotes are about 209.30 on select cuts there. Only 567 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. That's about like last week, and that's a lot lighter for current delivery cuts than what we saw, over the last several months, really. But your slaughter, disappointing because of Saturday, and your packer buyers used that as a threat all week to work the market lower. They told everybody that they weren't going to have much of a kill on Saturday. They reminded them that, and it was actually 2 holidays back to back because they were going to give a lot of their workers Saturday off and then be closed on Monday too. But indeed, they did have a pretty weak Saturday, just 44,000. That's 22,000 less than the previous week there. But 633,000 head slaughtered for last week. That's 21,000 less than the previous week, and can't really judge it from last year because the holiday fell on that week. But pretty disappointing slaughter there. And then we're going into a holiday week with most everybody closed on Monday. So that's going to be a tough one. It's sure going to be hard to even hold steady money on fat cattle next week. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late on Friday there, or ending the week there at 138.34. That was down $1.65 compared to the end of the previous week. Look at your cash feeders, and your Southern Plains sales feeder cattle $3 to $5 lower. Northern Plains $1 to $3 lower. And you can separate it that way. It doesn't really do that perfectly, but basically it was your auction markets that depend on your corporate feeders, Southern Plains especially corporate feeders. They were down the hardest. Your corporate feedlots were really out of the market this past week. They did not push on anything, just barely letting their order buyers buy hardly anything, and then they were not active in the market all that much. Now you get to some places where you get your larger independent feeders and your farmer feeders, which is mostly in the Northern Plains, but sometimes delving down into part of the Southern Plains. They were only $1 to $3 lower because we're going to have a bumper crop of corn. Everybody's talking about how dry it is, but it didn't start getting really dry until after that corn was made. And actually, it may end up helping because they'll be able to pick that corn as it's ready. They won't have to wait for it to dry out. So, and they won't be looking at any discounts on that. But that's kind of what's going on there. I tell you what, with a lot of calves, the guys trying to wean them with this market or this weather changing like it is, it's going to be tough. I tell you what, especially you guys in your mountain states there, and a lot more of them are wanting to wean their cattle. We've seen a world of these fall selling calves already sold on the video and private treaty, and all of those will wean the day they ship them. But these guys that are trying to get more money, trying to add more value to their cattle that are weaning, they're probably going to be having second thoughts, because nothing's harder on cattle than these massive weather changes here, right while they're under separation anxiety from their mothers, and it's dusty too. It's tough, and I tell you what, those ranch cowboys, they're thinking twice about what they do for a living. They'd a lot rather be riding out in the pasture on their horse than they would be in the weaning pen pulling sick ones. And then whenever you doctor one of those sick ones, then If you're trying to keep those cattle all natural, you got to give them a mark and put them in a different pen, and it just gets to be a big mess there. But this big weather change abruptly probably couldn't have happened at a worse time for a lot of guys that are trying to get their calves weaned. But your calf prices last week in your sale barns were very uneven. Not due so much to your corporate buying or your independent buying, but more so depending on your grazing conditions. In places where they had a lot of been having some pretty good rain, places where they had some of this hurricane rain here in the last week or two, your calves actually sold pretty well. But when you get further west and you get to places where it's very dry and there's not many places to turn those calves out, you're going to have to shut them up, and the pens are dry and dusty and all that. Not very good demand for those calves, especially the balling calves. And every year the discounts on fat balling calves get worse. And so, I just talked about the challenges of trying to get those calves weaned and vaccinated, but at the very least, you've got to get them vaccinated, and double vaccinated preferably. Let's talk about some individual quotes there. On Friday, late in the week there, Magnus Livestock Market, Huron, South Dakota, had 3 loads averaging 946 pounds there on $140. That's a pretty good quote there, guys. How about St. Onge Livestock, a different part of South Dakota? St. Onge, South Dakota, 71 head, 856 pound steers, bring $144.50. But the top quote I'm going to give for late in the week last week was on some real light calves. Hills City Livestock Commission, Hills City, Kansas. How about 57 head of lightweight steers weighing 427 at $199.35. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.